My name is Mike Adams. I'm the Director of Product Marketing at VMware. I've been at VMware for just about 8 years now. So I've had the pleasure of doing this session all the way back to the 4.1 days. How many people still running 4.1 right now? Go ahead, don't be shy. I know there are some of you out there, don't lie. Anyway, what I want to talk about today, obviously, what's new with vSphere. And you know, what you saw this week was kind of interesting because we've kind of conditioned you guys and everybody else that usually about VMworld time, there's a release, right? 2 years ago we had 5.1, last year we had 5.5, and then people are expecting something to be coming out, right? And instead we talked about the 6.0 beta. Pat and Raghu have talked a lot about that. So I want to kind of get a little bit into that. I want to talk about some of the technical previews that we have here. I want to talk about the update capability that we're bringing out this quarter. And I want to talk about a few other things. Many of you have seen me speak before. With this particular session, since there's so much information, I like to take questions at the end. And if you could be so kind, because the presentation is being recorded, if you could come up to one of the mics when we get to the question phase at the end, that would be great. And also, just because this is such a large room, if at the end you don't want to participate in questions and you feel like leaving, if you could try to leave toward the back so that we can get people front and get them up to ask questions and it's not as much disruption. It's always tough in a group this size, but you never know, and we hope to do our best. After this, I'll stick around. I do have a meeting at 9:30, but I'll stick around as well for questions as long as I can. You have my email up here. Many of you have seen this before. I have one of the best email addresses at VMware. madams@vmware.com is me. Yes, I've had that since day one here. And we had a guy, actually, he's left VMware now. His name was Creighton Hicks, and so his was chicks@vmware.com, which was better than mine, but he left the company, so now I have the best email address back. So anyway, write me at madams@vmware.com and we'll have a happy chat. Okay, so we are going to be talking about some future type capability, tech preview type of stuff. So I have to disclaim you. You've seen this already, so don't worry. Just making sure that I'm covering my backside and we're good. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then here's what we're going to go through today. We'll talk a little bit about the tie-in with what's going on with software-defined data center and software-defined enterprise. I've told you guys for the last couple of years about the tie-in to the larger picture. And remember that today's vSphere user, to kind of get to where we ultimately want to go, you've got to become tomorrow's, or coming up on tomorrow's NSX user, the vSAN user, management user, and all the other technologies in order to get to where we ultimately want to go and the journey that we want to get onto, or SDDC. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll give you kind of the state of the union, the specifics that I want to make sure that you have available to you from this year's VMworld. We'll get into that. I want to talk about a new offering for remote office, branch office. I also use the term robo sometimes, and we have a separate breakout on this that Sai Gopalan and my team is running. But it was funny, I told the user in an NDA session yesterday, we've got this new offering for robo. And he was like, that is so cool. And I said, yeah, it's for remote office, branch office. And he says, well, I thought it was more about robots, so I'm kind of disappointed now. And I was, bummer. But it's a good solution for, tying in better functionality and also a better packaging model for remote office. What we have right now is kind of a Band-Aid for remote office solution. And I think you're going to agree with me when we get to that section. We'll talk about some of the newer workloads. I think a lot of you run traditional workloads on top of vSphere, so the Oracles, the SQLs, the Exchanges, SAP, custom Java apps, those types of things. But newer workloads where people are starting to get into that cloud tier, third platform applications, things like PaaS with Pivotal CF. Want to give you a little bit of update there, as well as with big data extensions, which we had some announcement with the vCloud suite. We'll talk a little bit about what's new there. We'll get into the tech previews, talk about similar to the things that you saw. Raghu introduced the fault-tolerant capability in vMotion over distance, which we've been talking about for a long time. But we're very soon or on the cusp of those technologies, so that's goodness, and I'll give you a few more details there. Talk a little bit more about vCloud Director transition. You're going to see how some of that technology is already rolling into vSphere. So we're in a good spot there. And then also some of my job this year in number 7, the EOA reminders. I've had a lot of kind of doom and gloom duties this year about having to end of life certain things, and there's all sorts of reasons why we do that, and I realize that causes disruption, but I just want to make sure that you're very clear on what's been announced. Generally what I find, with vSphere users, just like everybody else, there's lots of stuff coming at you from a lot of different vendors, lots of different products, and it's hard sometimes to maintain kind of an understanding of what's going on and make sure it's clear in your mind. mind. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll have time for hopefully Q&A at the end. Okay, so State of the Union, obviously we've been talking about the software-defined enterprise, and some people sometimes equate software-defined data center and software-defined enterprise. Basically what we did at the software-defined enterprise, when you see this, it's the term to include all the different components, right? Not just the infrastructure stack, which is SDDC at the bottom there in the blue box, but it's also adding the capabilities of the management layer and also things like the view environments and the mobile computing types of capabilities. So really trying to build out this picture. And obviously vSphere lives in the box down the bottom. When you see us talk about compute virtualization, we tie in all the aspects of vSphere there. Okay, so get used to this picture. We're going to continue to use it as the major architecture moving forward. It's also a good roadmap for you to think about where's the next logical step that I need to take with my vSphere environment, right? How can I build out and ultimately get to the software-defined data center and ultimately the software-defined enterprise? And that's really key. I think one of the things too that's daunting about this picture is you just kind of look at it and go, holy cripes, what's going on? Which way should I actually go? And I think it's important to kind of break it down a little bit further and think about what your next logical move is. I think for a lot of you that are just a vSphere user today, a lot of value can be pulled right away out of the operations management tie-in. So getting health, performance, and capacity out of the vSphere environment. So knowing, for example, I'm going to run out of data store space in 41 days. Right? That would be really helpful information to have, right? And if you don't have kind of a dashboard at about 50 VMs and higher, and I know many of you are probably well into that section, it's going to be really difficult to figure out what's going on with the environment and get details that you need in order to move forward. So keep that in mind as we go. And obviously the tie-in with the hybrid cloud. One of the things on the vSphere side that we're continuing to look at is how do we enable that hybrid cloud use case as quickly as possible with some of the technologies. So even beyond the release that we'll have into next year and the releases beyond that, looking at how we really enable that vCloud Air capability as quickly as possible. Here's the other view that I think is very important from vSphere land, and I was talking a little bit about this in the intro when we were discussing the agenda. But many of you are very familiar with the legacy applications that are running on vSphere. Many of you have virtualized Oracle and the SQLs and Exchanges and SAPs, and I think that some of you are still driving to do that. Keep in mind we still have a great value prop for virtualizing those business critical apps. I've also hired a guy in my team that is an Oracle certified master. And he is going around the country and talks with a lot of our customers around best practices for virtualizing Oracle. He used to be an Oracle instructor. And we have lots of other folks as well that are very disciplined in how you deploy these applications on top of vSphere. We're also trying to take an approach with our sales teams to say, okay, we need to go after and virtualize more of these business critical applications. And so we're continuing to do that. You should think about how that's going to change the cost metrics of how you deploy different applications. And I know that many of you have done some, but we need to do more as we drive toward higher and higher levels of virtualization and greater percentage of your workloads being virtualized. And then there's the piece on the right, the newer applications that, again, we're also driving towards. So it's kind of an interesting development process at vSphere Engineering where we're thinking about, okay, hold on to legacy, make sure that that's very strong, very solid, but also prepare for this world that's very different, where I need to spin up all these VMs very, very quickly, and I may need to blow them away just as quickly. So you saw Kit Colbert yesterday talk about Project Fargo, and how we're going to use that with view environments and other environments that will really help us spit out a number of VMs very, very quickly to support these different use cases than we had in the past. You've also seen from us, and we'll talk a little bit more about this through some of the details that I have, start to include controls in vSphere that look at things like latency sensitivity. So for the first time in 5.5, I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a high latency capability where you can actually say this VM has a high or a low latency need. And what that does, if you have like an in-memory database or something that needs really snappy access, you can actually pin a virtual CPU to a physical CPU. Now, there are pluses and minuses to doing that, and we have all the caveats and different literature about that. But it's that type of thing that's so important about this piece on the right, is that instead of just looking at the VM and thinking a VM is a VM is a VM, vSphere is actually starting to understand what the workload is inside that VM in order to make things better. And I'm going to tie that even further today with some of the new technology we moved from vCloud Director into vSphere that looks at this at a higher level, starting to look at it across the virtual data center. And we'll get into that as well. Just a quick recap. If those of you, how many are already on 5.5 today? Okay. How many, actually, probably the more important question, how many are not on 5.5? Okay. So just a quick review from last year. We introduced some newer capabilities around 5.5, and actually a number of these will also be enhanced with the release next year. So we talked about application HA, where we added a new service capability to the restart of the VM, not just the restart of the VM, but also restarting the service. We added the flash read cache technology, which added a new pool of flash capability, should you have it, where you could go ahead and insert that into the data path so that the VM actually doesn't even know it's being accelerated. But in testing that we saw, we improved performance by 1.5 to about 2x in terms of the read cache type of function. And we'll be working on a write cache over time. We also made some improvements to replication and also the backup and recovery. Specifically on the replication side, we made sure that when storage vMotion, storage DRS activities were happening, we didn't replicate things twice. There were some capabilities prior to that point where we did some double duty that we didn't need to. And obviously, for the first time, we had actually the big data extensions, what we call BDE, if you see that. There's a number of sessions here that are specifically dedicated to Hadoop. We also have stuff on the showcase floor, so if you're interested in any of that, we'll talk a little bit more as we go, but that was the first time we productized what was called previously Project Serengeti. How many today are virtualizing a Hadoop workload? Anybody? Okay, a few. All right. Seems to be pretty consistent from year to year so far. All right. The other piece that I want you to think about too is we've made a really concerted effort in how we actually bring vSphere out. And I just want to make sure everybody's clear on this, because I think there are some really key values that you can get out of this if you understand the reasons kind of behind this, okay? So VMware and its partners have really been focused on bringing VMware out in one of two ways, and it's the two upper circles that you see. Okay, either through the vCloud suite, which is getting you as close as possible to the full SDDC vision, packing a number of products in there, and that's generally for larger enterprise class customers. You usually purchase that through an ELA. And then the other way we decided to go was on the right side, we decided to link the ops management capability, specifically the standard version of that, with vSphere. And the reason that we did that is, again, remember what we're trying to do is take today's vSphere user and see where you're trying to go. And for a lot of you that may be in the mid-tier space, even a little bit smaller, getting that health, performance, and capacity information as soon as you get to about 50 VMs makes sense. And that's why we have that piece up on the right. And so, those two models are how our partners and our field go to market with vSphere. We're trying to get away of just selling vSphere by itself, or what they call naked vSphere or a la carte vSphere. Right? And so that continues to be, a key kind of role. And at some point, we'll probably go, look at, not having one of these components available, because we're trying to really drive into a larger solution that gets you on the road to software-defined data center. So that's just really important to realize those and think about these. I realize we throw a lot of names at you, and sometimes with vSphere, the operations management, you may hear vSOM. That's how people kind of shorten it. But it's important to understand some of these characteristics so we can best link it to what you're trying to do. So I'm not trying to preach sales things at you. I'm just trying to educate you on to kind of what we're doing and what's going on with the delivery of the product. All right. So let's talk about State of the Union. Things I'm hoping you at least learned one or two interesting things today in the session. These are the big things that we want to announce. So first of all, we will have Update 2 for vSphere 5.5 be available in this quarter. So by the end of September, we will have 5.5 Update 2. I'll share with you the details around that, but obviously support for vCloud Suite 5.8, the new capabilities in that. We'll talk about some of the other components in just a second, but they really center around additional support capabilities, right? We've gotten very clear messages, and I know this is a no-no. You never, in an update release, put a new feature capability, because people aren't expecting it, and it will throw all sorts of things into disarray if you do that. So I will share with you in a chart that I have exactly what's in there. And keep in mind that in Update 2, well over 100 new fixes. So we've really put a lot of wood behind the arrow here in order to make 5.5 as stable environment as possible. The new Robo offering, again, will also be out this quarter. So for remote office, branch office, what we're going to do is introduce a new licensing model here. So at the remote office, it seems in the research that we did, it's easier for people to understand per VM counting than per CPU, and also be able to spread those VMs across multiple remote offices. That's a major benefit, as well as how we're kind of interacting with vCenter Server, and I'll share those details in just a second. Just so you know, we're going to end of life the what's called Essentials for Robo and Essentials Plus for Robo SKUs at the end of this month in favor of these new ones. And I think when you see the layout, you'll be pretty impressed with what we're doing. And then the last piece, the vSphere 6.0 beta, which we did get going a little bit earlier this summer. If you haven't signed up for the beta, please do so. I was looking at VMworld this year to add about 5,000 additional folks into the beta cycle. And what's really great about the beta, this is the first time we've done this for vSphere, and I've been allowed to. I've always wanted to do this. We've just opened the funnel at the front end to allow everybody to sign up. The beta process was a little bit of a black box mystery at VMware before. What would happen is our internal sales guys would sign a form, or the SC would fill out a form, you'd get nominated, you'd have to get cleared, and then magically in your email box, a note would pop up that said, hey, you're part of the beta, right? And now instead of doing that, you can actually sign up, go through, sign the NDAs, and then boom, you're part of the beta cycle already. And that's going to lead to a better product for us and a better product for you. So please participate in the beta. In addition to having the bits available for you to download and use, we're also going to make available at some point a hosted beta capability so that you could actually go into a portal and then test some of the features. So I know that a lot of you like to take the code and use it on your stuff, but if you don't have time or just want to play around with something and blow it away, let us help you and use the portal to go ahead and experience that. Okay? So keep that in mind as well. Okay, so here's the big kind of aha that you should be taking away. So again, starting with 5.5, we talked about those features already, and now having 5.5 Update 2 and the vSphere beta. And for some reason, I don't know why, my bullet list for 5.5 Update 2 did not come up there. So let's quickly talk about that for a second. I apologize for that, and I'll switch the slide back in the materials so that you can get it. A couple of things that we're doing there. Supporting 6 terabyte memory hosts. Those are not yet available on the market, but they will be coming. So we will support those. We will be supporting a Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7, as well as Ubuntu 10. That will be on the list. Those are new guest operating systems. From the VC perspective, there are a number of additional versions of SQL and also a few versions of Oracle that are now supported or will be supported with that release. One of the ones I remember is SQL 2014 and a variety of others. So just check the list for that. We will also have storage vMotion with what they call CBT, change block tracking. So that will also be available with the Update 2. So as I was talking about these, you're getting the idea again. Remember, it's new support level capability. It's not new feature rich content. So keep those in mind as we go. All right. So up on the right, you see some of the tech previews, and a number of these we have down on the show floor to take a look at. We'll have some commentary about this. Performance and scale, always a big deal with vSphere. And when you see the new numbers, again, I think a lot of times, we look at the numbers and go, yeah, I'm never going to have 400 VMs on this host. But the idea behind giving you these numbers and showing you where we're headed, increasing cluster sizes and other VMs and other things like that, the design is that if you're investing in a platform that you're going to use for the next 5, 7, 10 years, if not longer, it's important to understand that we're trying to keep ahead of where the Joneses are at, right? Where you're at right now, we're trying to keep above that ceiling so that and when the time comes and you are that big, the product will already have scaled out to that level. And that's the reason that we show some of those scale numbers. We also try to do a lot of performance testing so that you can understand where we're headed. So you know what the overhead of a fault-tolerant environment is going to be, or you know what the impact of a flash read cache technology is going to be. And when we get closer to the next release, we'll have a lot of detailed documentation that has that. You see some stuff up at the top too around the grid pieces, container support. There's a lot of new capabilities that we've talked about. You can add OpenStack into that list as well. So lots of things that are also on the horizon there in the work that we're doing with Docker and Google and OpenStack and all these different players to tie in with next generation architectures and next generation workloads. And we'll continue to educate you on those as we go forward. We'll talk about the vMotion pieces. And remember, vMotion, really the enhancements are in 3 parts. Cross distributed switch, cross vCenter, and then the one that a lot of people like, the long distance capability, will drive into each one of those as well. You see the piece around fault tolerance. I'm going to give you some updated detail there beyond what Raghu was talking about, but I'm so excited that that's finally here. And then if you haven't heard, virtual volumes we've been talking about for the last couple of years as well. That's kind of the last bullet in the middle section there. So the ability to make a VM a first-class citizen when it comes to storage. Today, storage is not aware that a VM is residing on the storage, right? In the physical world, we use LUNs. In the VM world, we use data stores. Well, why do we have to do that? Can't we just say, hey, here's some storage space, let's go ahead and fill it up with VMs and use a new API to do that? And that's what our partners are doing. And it's kind of a strategy where you've got virtual volumes that you can use with arrays, or you can go down the path of kind of creating your own storage with the virtual SAN technology. And both of those are in beta as well. And the last piece that you see here, we'll talk a little bit about this in the tech previews. And this is some of the cooler stuff that we've brought in from vCloud Director into vSphere. So you see the virtual data center, the VDC concept brought into the product. We'll talk about policy-based management as well. So again, remember we were talking about being smarter from the latency perspective? Well, let's be smarter from a higher level than just the cluster. Can we go ahead and understand underneath this VC all the capabilities that we have and just apply a policy so that when you create a VM, you don't have to go running for a spreadsheet as to where's the best place to put this. And I'll get more specific in a second. All right. So, oh, here's my slide. Okay, I just was forgetting the order. Sorry about that. Here's what I was trying to mention before, just in terms of the timeline. So we did update 1, we have update 2, and here are the pieces. So let's see, did I get every single one? I forgot the Haswell EP legacy support. So that's the third bullet there, but I got just about everything else, so I was remembering correctly. But you see here in the update 2, just again, some new support capability. And then the next release being in 2015 and being in the front half of the year. That star is just designed to show you that, hey, next year we're going to have a release. It shouldn't give you any indicator as, you know, I try to be as in the center as possible because I know that people get really wrapped around the axle on these things, but that's where we're going. vSphere in 2015 will be the next, target for release. And that's pretty consistent with what we've been doing, usually about 12 to 18 month development cycle on vSphere, and then we come out with release. And obviously you can see by what I was telling you in the tech preview, both this next release and beyond, we're sitting on a chock full of really good technologies and really strong delivery components. And I think a lot of you are looking for that, right? Many of you come to me and say, you're asking, geez, I really need a whiz-bang technology. I want something that really knocks it out of the park and really separates you guys from other pieces that are out there and people that are talking in my ear. And we're able to do that with what you're seeing here. So here's the beta, as I was talking about before. If you have not signed up, please do so. We're really excited about the possibilities here, and you'll see some really interesting things, and hopefully you can give us some very strong feedback. What's also good about the beta is it's not just like we just give you the code and just let you go and you don't really have much interaction. You will get more detailed interaction with a more advanced team at VMware. We also do have weekly webcasts where we go through some of the new functionality in the beta so you can understand what it is, how to test it, and there are lots of automated workflows as well that will walk you through, similar to a hands-on lab. They'll walk you through how to test the feature and how it may be applicable within your environment. And we're always looking for feedback as well as to, does this make sense? Can we go ahead and change it to more suit your work need and your workloads? Okay, so let's talk a little about remote office, branch office. So this is the new solution new packaging piece for vSphere. And as we go through this, one of the things that we're seeing, and I bet a lot of you out there, we're seeing a lot of remote workloads that are there. Okay, so this kind of looks across different regions, it looks across different segments, and if you want to kind of compare yourself on the bottom segments, we look at SMB as up to 1,000 employees, commercial in the middle is 1,000 to 5,000, and then enterprise is 5,000 and above. So a lot of workloads that are running out there, and these are generally not virtualized, right? There are some issues around how people look at these environments, but I think a lot of folks, they're just not quite sure what to do, and they'd like to bring them in, but they're not sure how to do it and what are some of the benefits that we can get. I think for others of you, remote sites, they may have some of their own kind of management structure, or they buy for their own sites, so it's a little bit of a different buying process. But then also keep in mind that I know for some of you, if you run an internal IT shop at a big place, right, the remote office generally has less skilled employees. It may have some, somebody that wears multiple hats, and it's just a tough thing for them to get their mind wrapped around. But this also indicates to me some need for folks to use a centralized vCenter over those remote sites. And so we calculated this into this new offering as well. And you can actually use a vCenter locally or use one that is maintained someplace else to manage these remote offices. And this is kind of additional to that, some of the problems that you may find as well, in addition to what I was talking about with wearing many hats and understanding what's going on. Network connectivity can sometimes be an issue, the pipe that you have to those sites, as well as the budget may be a little bit more limited in terms of the offering itself. So if we look into what we're trying to provide, we actually are doing a paper with IDC as well as a number of different pieces to show you the value that we're going to get out of the virtualization of a remote office, right? So obviously the core value up the top of hardware abstractions, agility, those are the kind of the standard benefits we get with virtualization. But down the bottom, more things like compliance and then availability. And what we decided to do, if you look at the current solution for Robo, it doesn't have kind of enough teeth. It doesn't add things like host profiles. It didn't add things like distributed switch. Host profiles are valuable for that consistency level infrastructure that you're trying to push out. And then from the compliance angle, distributed switch helps you maintain the compliance of the network overall. So what we've done is thrown together, that's kind of rude. We've put together two packages for remote office, okay? And so this really solves a couple of issues. Number one, it's giving you more functionality, and you can see the differences there in that black box. I don't have a little laser pointer, but in the black box down there, those are things that we're adding, right? So prior to this point, we had only offered you some of the functionality that you see that's not in bold on both sides, right? So there are two packages for this. And what we also did was we put this in packs of 25 so that if you have, let's say, 10 remote offices and each one only has 7 VMs at each site, you can actually take that pack and spread it across the remote offices. Because what I've found in the research is that most remote offices, they have 2 hosts and they're running somewhere between 2 and 10 VMs. That's kind of rough. Your mileage may vary. But having this licensing that splits across, having no really host limitations, allowing us to just be more flexible and price this per VM, I think is pretty interesting in terms of how we do this. So if this is of interest to you and you have a remote office use case, please consider this. I also think about this as extending vSphere to the remote office, right? You've experienced vSphere in the data center, now let's extend it out. And you can, as I mentioned before, you can use vCenter. If you have another vCenter, you can use that locally, or you could use it at a remote area to manage all those different remote sites. And that's also key in here. We don't have vCenter tied in with the license here, assuming you're going to use another one that you have available in order to make a remote office work. So again, available this quarter. Definitely check it out if you have the remote office need. We'll be driving pretty hard into this. And we've already talked to a lot of very big names, I know, here in the States, and we're on board in EMEA and APAC. This will be a global solution to introduce this in a very strong way as well. How many people today do have remote office workloads under their control? Okay, good, excellent. All right, so we're hitting some good points, good. All right, let's talk about a few of the newer workloads. So this is one that people may not be aware of because we introduced it in November of last year and we've modified it in May of this year. This is the Pivotal Cloud Foundry, Pivotal CF technology. And basically what this is platform as a service. And I realize I'm not talking to the right crowd about the user of this tool, but the thing for you as the vSphere admin is you're going to have to set it up, right? Because the idea here with the platform as a service, you don't want those guys to monkey with or have to deal with infrastructure. In fact, they don't want to deal with infrastructure, right? What they're trying to do is use and create a non-packaged application. They need a runtime environment and they need some of the tools in order to be able to do that. So everybody's in the race to get the application developer into the fray and give them tools that allow them to do what they do best. And so that's why we introduced for the first time the ability to do platform as a service on top of a private cloud or on top of the infrastructure that you already have. Okay, so again, this came out in November last year. We've modified it once in May, and our great partnership with Pivotal, has allowed us to go into a lot of great accounts and say, okay, platform as a service, yeah, we can go ahead and deliver that. So we're pretty excited about what this is able to offer to the customer base. And again, think about expanding beyond traditional workloads. If you have app developers with you, they're going to probably come ask you about this type of technology as we move forward, right? And again, usually what will end up happening is the Pivotal team will come in and they'll talk about that need, and then the vSphere team will need to get involved because obviously you need to set that up. The other piece that's interesting about this as well is in the earlier part of this year, we also announced that this would run on vCloud Air. Okay, so on the hybrid service capability. So if you don't want to run the platform as a service internally on the private cloud, you could run it on the hybrid cloud environment. Okay, it's not actually a service that you can consume. It's actually moving the workload into the Air technology. So that's an offering as well. And I think that signals something that we'll do a lot of moving forward. If you have a particular application workload, we're going to tell you, geez, you can run it in the private cloud on vSphere or run it in the hybrid cloud. Really take your pick. And that's how we've set up Pivotal CF today. So we're excited about where this is headed. And the ability to offer platform as a service, because the Pivotal tool is one of the industry leaders in that space. Let's talk a little bit about big data. So we introduced, I said, the big data extension last year to the vSphere 5.5 environment. With big data, also this summer, we had a big data extension, what they call BDE 2.0. And what that has done is it supports some of the new Hadoop 2.0 distributions. Okay. The Hadoop, or the capability that we have for big data, it actually spins faster than vSphere. We actually do 2 releases of the BDE code per year. So they've just done one this summer, and they'll get ready for another one coming up here, but we're showing some tech previews related to that. And in the tech preview side, they're showing how they interface with some of the management tools, like Cloudera Manager and a few other pieces. And then obviously you heard yesterday with the vCloud Suite, the support of Hadoop 2.0, and that has to do with the big data extension 2.0 capabilities. In fact, I should have added a slide in there, and I did. So we have, you can see all the pieces related to 5.8, and there you see in the middle there talking about the support of the Hadoop 2.0. So I think for a lot of you too, this may be similar to the Pivotal CF discussion where Hadoop may be coming to a world near you. I have seen a lot more interest this year in some of the NDA customer sessions that I have had where people are starting to fool around with this more, start to implement it a little bit more. And I think it's going to take a little bit because Hadoop and the architectures, if you look at those, a lot of people have architected them for physical, and they use local storage because that's been kind of the status quo for how you set it up. But keep in mind that virtualizing that gives you better availability constructs. It also will help you be more flexible in kind of the spin up, spin down, get bigger, get smaller needs of the Hadoop world. And you can also look for us to do more partnership around that area, as I think the scientific community, we generally don't know those folks too well from the vSphere perspective, and so we want to get to know those folks a little bit better. Plenty of other sessions too on big data. We've got guys crawling around here. If you're interested in that, there are people like Justin Murray, Kevin Leong. All those guys are very well versed in the big data area. All right, so let's start to talk about some technology previews and where we're headed. Again, this is kind of the roadmap that I think about as what we're trying to do. Continue to be the dominant platform for virtualization. Those running of apps, we've kind of killed that to a dead horse already, but we'll talk a little bit about some of the additions to that. And then the operations efficiency at scale, trying to, again, add more automation. If you listen to Pat's keynote, he said automation like 50 plus times, right? Because we're trying to get to the point where with this large number of VMs, you have to have some automation that's put in place. So here's the vMotion piece. Again, 3 components, the across switches, across the vCenter, and then across longer distance. I'll get to the distance in just a second. One of the things people ask me about in doing this, why did it kind of take so long? Well, one of the things I think about in that is, think about the different components that had to come together in doing this. When one of those key components was in 5.1, the ability to have vMotion without shared storage. So you could move the container and the VMDK file without having that shared storage repository. So we're pretty excited about the fact that you will have this function that will allow you to get some greater availability constructs. and not requiring, again, shared storage in order to make this work. Today, with vSphere, you can use vMotion across cluster, but again, you cannot use it across switches or across vCenter servers themselves. And this will allow you to do that independently. So we're really excited about that. The larger construct in long-distance vMotion, this is the piece that will now allow you to send a workload and have latency up to 100 milliseconds of round-trip transfer time. So today across the country, it's somewhere between 50 and 60 milliseconds. So this should be easy to get, from the West Coast to the East Coast. I bet you there'll be some use cases as well from the United States to Europe and potentially other areas. Keep in mind, that when you do this, you'll have to have the right pipes in place. I think the advent of, obviously using, 10 gig E, and then as we go forward, 40 gig E, those are going to become, really big things as we think about the pipes that we have and the interaction points. So keep that in mind. Raghu was also talking about kind of what we're doing in combination with NSX. I don't have a lot of those details available for you right now, so just stay tuned with that as we think about this. But this will be in the core, vSphere technology in order to allow you to do this. What I also think is really interesting here, and again, we haven't announced anything, but the technology, if I kind of look ahead, think about things like interaction with Site Recovery Manager. Now I may not need to replicate anything. I may actually just be able to use vMotion as the underlying technology for that. And I think we'll be talking more about that as we go and as we think about the different use cases that we could potentially make out of having a capability like this. Here's the big one around fault tolerance for multi-CPU capability. So again, when you came out and talked to people about a fault tolerance, one vCPU, the next words out of most people's mouths was useless. It's not useful for me, right? It doesn't help me, right? And so in this case, we'll go up to 4-way. What we've done is we've changed the underlying technology. So we used to use record and replay from the workstation code, and now we're using something called fast checkpointing. And fast checkpointing isn't a new AHA technology. It's just something that we needed to use in order to get the scale that we needed. The way this will work is you can have up to 8 virtual CPUs of FT running on a single host. Okay, that'll be kind of the max limit that we're looking at right now. I never say never because you never know till the config max document comes out a little closer to the release. But what that means is you could be running 2 4-way VMs on the box. You could run 4 2-ways or run 8 1-ways, which you wouldn't do, but definitely possible. And keep in mind when you do that, the other VMs that are running on that box, you can still load them up with HA should you want to do that. So you can have FT and HA VMs on the same host. But again, remember, up to 8 vCPUs of fault tolerance. So either, again, 2 4-ways, 4 2-ways, or 8 1-way pieces. So this should definitely help us. We are going to make some recommendations around the type of hardware that you probably want to look at, the chipset or the processor more specifically, and then the 10 gig piece. I think that's going to be a requirement here as well. Think about also is if we think about the future of where we could go if you'd want something like 8-way or 16-way, and I've already talked to some people about that, and they're thinking about, yeah, that would be interesting. It's an order of magnitude to do that, and I'm thinking in those particular cases, the 40 gig pipe is going to be, the minimum that we're going to need in order to make that work. Okay, so that's why we're not introducing something. Most people aren't at 40 gig. We've just introduced support for that within the last year. So keep that in mind. And again, remember too, this diagram in terms of what's happening. You're going to have the failure of one, the instantaneous takeover another, and then we'll create another shadow VM on another host within the environment in order to maintain the fault-tolerant capability. So hopefully, that's going to meet the requirement. And as Raghu said, we estimated the 2-way and the 4-way up to 4-way should, solve a lot of the intermediate needs that we have for applications. And then hopefully over time, we'd be able to expand that a little bit more as well. And then remember also, Raghu was talking about how this is inside of the beta right now, so you can go ahead and experience this and take a look. One other thing just to be cognizant of, when this does come out, we will have detailed implementation papers on what to FT and what not to FT, so that you understand the overhead. It is possible that in some of the larger 4-way scenarios, you may still have a lot of overhead associated with this, right? And it's always a good side and a bad side to doing things. And you just need to understand, when you do this, what the potential impact on the environment will be. But definitely, something that is a great problem to solve. All right. Here's the host and scale numbers, and again, not trying to wow you because we think we're cool, but just trying to show you, some of the larger numbers that get up there. One of the key pieces that I'm talking about, and remember in the middle there, the 4 terabyte host memory and the 5 update 2, I already shared with you the 6 terabyte host memory that's been released or will be released this quarter. And then some of the bigger ones that we're looking at, you see the VMDK sizes. The bigger one that I'm excited about is the 32 nodes per cluster. In the future, going up to 64 nodes. So I realize that some of you, that might be a great, Mike, that's fantastic, because you may have 8, 12, or 20, or 24. But again, remember, trying to scale out the environment so that we're helping you with the workloads that you have, and also making sure that when you get new gear and go through a refresh cycle, there. We're really trying to make a good commitment on day one support of different OSs and different types of hardware. And definitely keep us honest in that, and let us know what you're planning on doing and how quickly you're planning on doing it. I think some of the moves that we've made around the Linux driver, the native driver models, and the Linux kernel driver models have helped us kind of see the light and say, okay, we need to be supporting the ecosystem faster, and trying to make these scale needs a lot bigger for folks that are really pushing the envelope as well. So keep these in mind. Also, remember that when push comes to shove, the config maximum document is the place of all truth. And that usually comes out maybe a week, sometimes right on the date of a GA release, okay? And I know sometimes you folks ask about it. The reason that we hold it that long is we're testing up until the last minute to make sure that we push the boundaries of the size of those environments. So keep that in mind as to why we do that. Here's another piece that's been of interest to folks. So I've already talked about the App HA piece, which will go through modification next year as well. We'll add some new capabilities beyond the 1.0 App HA. I don't have a whole lot of detail into what's going to happen there, but you will see some changes in App HA. One thing that I am excited about is in the HA componentry, better understanding of component failure so that we can not force an HA function to happen. So in this particular case, you will see in the very near future the ability for us to understand that there are multiple paths to a piece of storage. So if I still have one path available, I won't necessarily trigger an HA event, okay? And beyond doing this with storage, we'll do this with network as the next kind of iteration of this as well. It's called component protection, and it'll actually be part of HA. It's part of making HA understand and be smarter about what's going on. So I know many of you have struggled with some of the things like all paths down and a few of the other pieces that have come up. This is really designed to look into making sure we're not forcing an HA failover when we don't have to. So very important to have that capability and be smarter about the failovers that we do need to make. This is what I was talking about before with the latency-sensitive capabilities. So the actual 2 on the top in the overview, we do have these set already today. Those 2 pieces, the last piece in the overview is more of a tech preview in terms of vMotion integration. But the top couple, again, get back to the point that we're trying to be smarter about the latency sensitivity of certain VMs. So if you do have that in-memory database, that quick stock transaction, those types of things, we can help you right away today and reduce what they call the jitter effect, right? And so understanding these different types of workloads becomes really, really important as we continue to drive toward all sorts of things being inside of vSphere and also providing automation, right? I don't want to have to monitor this the whole time. If I see latency or if I know latency is going to occur, vSphere will already make a correction for me to pin that virtual CPU to the physical CPU. And again, remember, there are pluses and minuses to doing that, and especially the effect on the other VMs that are on that host. But keep in mind, you have DRS and other pieces that are tying in with that to make sure that we're on a good trajectory there. All right, so the new cool stuff from vCloud Director coming into vSphere, and I'll talk a little bit about the transition, but this is part of what the update I wanted to give you on the transition of that. We are moving, for the first time, a content library into vSphere. So you will see this coming up in the very near term. And basically what this means is for ISO images and OVF files, we'll have a centralized point and centralized repository where you can store all that stuff and you can back it up to a data store. And it's just a great way to kind of bring everything together into one spot so I don't have to have something sitting over here and something sitting over here and then pull from something over here. I have it in one spot. And also we can actually set this up so that we can sync it between multiple vCenter servers. All right, so in sync, you'll have access to these wherever your vCenter servers are. The concept of sharing has never taken a bigger kind of a leap forward than with having the content library available so that folks can go ahead and synchronize, things like templates and a lot of these other componentries that would be really nice to have kind of all together. And so you see the idea of the bookshelves here and the different pieces that we have. But I think particularly for templates, being able to share templates across multiple VCs is a really good thing, and it's going to help you guys move forward. So very excited about the drive of this technology specifically into vSphere. And again, remember the concept behind moving technology from vCloud Director was to move it either into vSphere for the admin that needs these types of functionality, or move some of the other technology up into the automation center, the new vRealize automation center, to go ahead and give self-service and things like multi-tenancy a better home than when they were. All right. Here's another big one, the virtual data center, or the VDC. So we've been talking about the VDC concept for a while inside of vCloud Director, and now bringing that into vSphere. So this will be done under a single virtual center. Over the longer term, we'll be able to aggregate it or actually share it between multiple VCs, but for right now, it's underneath one VC. So as I was mentioning before, today you do a lot of things at the cluster level. Okay, but we're trying to up things a little bit further so that initial placement and understanding of where to stick things can be done at a higher aggregate level. So what you're seeing here, and I like to call this like a barcode up the top. You see that VM, tag, storage, and network. Okay, what do you really want to do with this VM? Right? What are the characteristics that it needs to have? Okay, we started talking about this a number of years ago with a kind of just a slide. It was more of a marketecture type of slide, but this is exactly where we're actually delivering on right now. That once you have these types of tags, I can go ahead and assign different components, and I'll talk about how policy-based management works in conjunction with this, but this is the setup to make sure that for this particular need, I have the right gear. Don't make me dive into spreadsheets, what I think's in my head, what I think's in Bob's head across the hallway. I will actually be able to set this up and know where's the best place to put things, and more importantly, vSphere knows where the best place to put things are based on the setup that you have. So we're really excited, and what you can probably realize with this can be extended over time. Okay, we're talking about within vSphere right now, but think about the possibilities here and the call-outs to SRM and to NSX and to the automation center. All those pieces can be wrapped up into this barcode so that when something happens, boom, a VM is created, I can go ahead and put it where it needs to go. Okay? And there's some really interesting use cases for upgrade. We can start to label things and say, okay, here's my gold, silver, and bronze. And when I update something new and I create, let's say, a new vSphere version in their environment, I can simply say, here, this is the old bronze, here's the new bronze. And the product will automatically move everything off into the new environment. I can also do a lot of simple cost savings on licenses. So today, with licenses, there are anti-affinity rules inside of DRS. This kind of takes that to the next level. Right? I don't have a license for the Oracle database in this particular cluster, so don't put it there. Right? That type of intelligence is really, really important. I know many of you ask us about dealing with licensing, and we're trying to get into some of that with these types of improvements. And based on the fact that we have the virtual data center, here's the policy-based management that will really drive into that. So now that you have the VDC, I can go ahead and make these tags. You see in this particular case, I want to put this VM, I'm going to give it a Detroit tag and put it inside the DMZ. And then based on what I have below, I can make the logical selection. The initial placement will go to that particular environment. And again, remember, I can do this either at the start of a VM's life, or I could go ahead and retrofit my entire environment. If any of you have ever played around with profile-driven storage, same type of thing, but we just did that for storage. This is trying to do this across the environment and take it to a higher level. So we're pretty excited about these. All right. So I think that is the end of the tech previews that I had. Hopefully you've been impressed by some of these technologies. Others you may be okay, but at least you're aware of kind of what we're doing and how we're trying to bring out some of these different pieces. And when they come out, again, read the two key things any release that comes out: release notes and the config maximum document. Those should be in your back pocket when these releases come out. And those are really the key sources of truth as to what's in and what's out when they come down the line. All right, animations. All right, VCD transition, a lot of what I talked about already has, we've kind of transpired, the movement of the content library, the virtual data center, and the policy-based management into vSphere. So that has happened down the bottom end, and in the next release into 2015, we'll have those componentries available. I know the vCloud automation, now it's the vRealize. This was, slide was done prior to that renaming convention. But we have, that team is still focused on the delivery of self-service as well as multi-tenancy. It does multi-tenancy a little bit different than how vCloud Director did it, but it does have that capability available. And we'll continue on this path. I don't have an update of migration tool. We had talked about that in the past. I don't have an update there. But for some of you who do use, if you're a VSPP customer, if you're a service provider and you buy through the VSPP program, we will be making some news around vCloud Director that we have available for service providers coming up in the near future. So stay tuned for that. All right, as we start to kind of wrap up and get toward the end of the pieces here, just some reminders as to what's going on. Keep in mind that the 4.x line was end of support in May of this year. It was actually May 21st. I realize people will run on after that, but just important to realize. And what that means too, the way the matrix is broken down, it actually lists vCenter Server and ESX separately, but they're all listed under 4.x. So that happened in May of this year. Also, Lab Manager, the product that will never die, has finally died. And the reason for that is Lab Manager was certified with 4.x. It would not work with 5.x. We extended the support an extra year to May of this year, but it goes the way of the dodo with vSphere 4.x that happened again on May 21st of this year. So that's where we are with that. I just encourage you to get to 5, as quickly as you can. Again, remember, if you have a high-level vCenter, you can still, pipe into 4.x environments. And I know some of you are also probably running some version of 3.5 out there too. So just keep those in mind. It's important to understand where those are at. And then also look at things like the 5.x. Remember that with 5, we have the 5.x end of life, and then 5.5, we put an extra 5-year cycle into that so that you wouldn't just have 3 years of use on 5.5. And I realize just doing those numbers really quick, it may be difficult to grok that. If you have questions about the end of support for 5.5 or 5.x, let me know. Heartbeat, there were a number of reasons that we went down Heartbeat, both business and technology. What we're going to be doing, I know a lot of you have questions about availability of vCenter. We're going to be producing a paper, in fact it should be out very soon here, talking more about how HA will play a bigger role inside a vCenter server. And this is why it's so important to look at the appliance model for vCenter Server. You're going to see the appliance really come up to snuff in terms of the scale and the capability with the physical Windows deployment model for vCenter Server. So just keep that in mind. A lot of you need to be looking at that because that will be the way forward as we think about deploying vCenter Server. So just keep that in mind. I know there may be some boos, but you need to think about this as we look forward. I promise it will get a better. And you notice also I didn't talk about the web client today. If you want to talk about that, but we can. But yes, I know. It's 8 a.m. Come on. So yeah, we can talk about it all you want. We have heard your feedback. I promise you. I don't do the product management myself, but we have heard the feedback loud and clear, and we will be making changes to make that better. I know we may have said that in past before too, but I've actually seen that in the development lab, and we've really gone back to the board to look at how web client functions as we move forward. Okay, with that in mind, this less capability for VMware, we also did announce the end of availability for that. So what that was when you purchased a license of vSphere, you got a license of SLES along with that. That ended in July, the tail end of July. So just keep that in mind as well. You can still use these products, obviously the Heartbeat and SLES capability for the intended support lifecycle. So what the end of support there means was we just gave a marker on the end. It's some number of years down the way, but it's just important to recognize that there is an end of support date that's there. And then the last piece, as I mentioned before earlier, with the new Robo SKUs that we have coming out, the older Essentials and Essentials Plus for Robo will go end of life as well. Keep in mind, Essentials, Essentials Plus, the normal SKUs for those, the non-Robo version, those will stay around as well. This is just the specific Robo edition that we had. All right. Well, with that, that's the end of my prepared materials. What I'll go ahead and do now is open it up for questions. For those of you who are leaving, thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you. Appreciate it.